5 years apart, a billionaire CEO walks into a restaurant and sees his ex-wife pregnant and working as a waitress. What happens next shocks everyone in the room. Hello beautiful souls and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel, the place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here, ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again. Because every story we share here is for you. Today's shout out goes to Alice Love from Australia. Thanks for being a part of our success story. Now, the story begins. Rose. Andrew walked into the small, crowded restaurant, expecting nothing more than a quiet dinner after a long week of back-to-back meetings. The soft hum of conversation, the clatter of dishes, and the scent of fresh bread usually put him at ease. But tonight, none of it mattered. He froze. Racheal. She moved among the tables with practiced grace, balancing a tray loaded with plates, smiling politely at customers, her hair catching the warm overhead lights. And then he noticed it. A gentle curve beneath her blouse. Pregnant. Andrew's chest tightened. His mind raced, memories of the past colliding with the present. 5 years apart. 5 years of silence. And now, here she was, carrying a child that had been conceived after a secret reunion 7 months ago. Before he could think of what to do, fate intervened. Racheal's foot caught the edge of a chair as she turned to place a plate on a table. The tray wobbled, dishes clattering to the floor. Hot soup spilled across the floor, and several customers gasped. "Oh my God!" a diner shouted. "Careful!" Racheal froze, her face pale, eyes wide, and for a heartbeat, Andrew thought she might faint. And then her eyes met his. Recognition, shock, disbelief. Time seemed to stop. The bustling restaurant, the angry murmurs of other diners, the clatter of broken dishes, all faded into the background. Andrew could barely breathe. The woman who had haunted his heart for 5 years, the mother of the child he didn't even know he would soon claim, stood before him. And in that instant, the world as he knew it collapsed. Racheal's hand instinctively rested over her stomach. She wanted to apologize, explain, hide, but words failed her. She could only manage a small, shaky smile, trying to mask the storm raging in both their hearts. Andrew's mind spun. How could she be here like this? How could he have missed every sign until now? And most importantly, what would he do next? The room buzzed around them. Diners muttered, some stared, others tried to step around the spilled soup. But Andrew didn't notice. Nothing mattered except the woman in front of him, pregnant, stunned, and more real to him now than ever before. And for the first time in 5 years, Andrew realized the past wasn't gone. It was standing right there, challenging him, daring him to act. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Soup spilled across the floor, plates were clattered to the ground, and a few murmurs rose from nearby tables. But for Andrew, none of that mattered. All he could see was Racheal, frozen in place, her wide eyes locked on his. Time stretched. "Racheal," he breathed, barely above a whisper. His voice caught in his throat, heavy with disbelief, regret, and longing all at once. She flinched at the sound, a mix of shock and caution. Her hand instinctively went to cover her stomach. The tray she had been balancing now resting forgotten on the floor. Andrew," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I didn't." But the words didn't come out right. What could she say? How do you explain 7 months of silence, the secret life that had grown quietly inside you? The choice to protect yourself while your heart still ached for the man standing before you. Nearby diners muttered, some glaring, some whispering about the spilled soup and the sudden tension between the two. Andrew noticed nothing. Every sound, every movement outside that small circle around them faded into a blur. He took a cautious step forward, every muscle in his body tense. He wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, to feel the truth of her presence, but he was afraid. Afraid of what he would find. Afraid of the words she might say. afraid of the reality of this new life. I didn't know, he said finally, voice low strained. I didn't know you were pregnant. Her eyes glistened. She looked down, then back up at him, searching for some sign of understanding, some reaction that wouldn't break the fragile ground they were both standing on. I wanted to tell you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know how you would react. After everything. After 5 years. Andrew swallowed hard. The weight of those 5 years, the misunderstandings, the pride, the regrets, pressed against his chest. And yet, looking at her now, looking at the small curve of her belly, he realized that time had not erased the love he still felt. Around them, the restaurant buzzed with chaos. A waiter slipped carefully past, trying to mop up the spilled soup. A child in the corner whimpered, startled by the sudden tension. But Andrew barely noticed any of it. All he could focus on was her, Racheal, standing there, alive, real, and more fragile and beautiful than ever. I don't know what to say, he admitted finally, voice raw. I wasn't expecting this. Any of it. Racheal's lips trembled, a mix of relief and fear. I know, she said softly. I didn't expect to see you either, and I didn't know if I could handle it. They were silent for a moment, caught in a collision of emotions too powerful to put into words. Shock, longing, guilt, fear, and a fragile thread of hope all coiled together, stretching the tension in the room to a breaking point. Then a diner's voice broke through. Excuse me, can someone clean this up? My table. Andrew flinched at the intrusion, the world rushing back in, reminding him that life carried on outside this bubble of emotion. But he ignored it. He needed to know. He needed to see her, to feel her, to understand what this meant. I want to understand, he said finally, stepping closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I want to know everything. About this. About us. About the baby. Her eyes softened, tears forming, but a small smile appeared. You will, she said quietly. If you're willing to listen. For the first time in years, Andrew felt the old heartbeat of hope stirring inside him. The past was not gone. The present was raw and fragile. And the future, unwritten, was waiting for both of them to take the next step. But one thing was clear. The moment in the restaurant was only the beginning. The truth, the emotions, the consequences, they were just starting to unravel. And Andrew knew that nothing would ever be simple again. After the initial shock of the restaurant, Andrew stepped back slightly, as if the space between them could give him time to breathe. But there was no breathing room for his heart. Every glance at Racheal, every soft curve of her growing belly, reminded him that life had moved forward without him. And for the first time in years he felt powerless, not over deals, not over money, not over anything. Racheal adjusted the edge of her blouse nervously, avoiding his eyes. She tried to steady the tray in her hands. Though most of the dishes had been cleaned up already, she wanted to act normal, professional, pretend that this encounter was just another evening at work. But her hands shook, her chest tightened, and her mind raced with questions. How much did he know? Would he be angry? Would he leave again? The customers whispered, some curious, some annoyed. One diner muttered about the spilled soup, another complained that service was delayed. The ordinary chaos of the restaurant collided with the extraordinary tension between them, making the moment feel even heavier. Andrew clenched his fists, struggling to maintain control. He wanted to speak, to demand answers, to shout, to cry, but he was torn between anger and longing. 5 years of pride and misunderstanding weighed on him. Could he even trust her now? Could he forgive himself for missing the signs, for not noticing the night they reconnected months ago, for not being there when life had begun in secret? I can't just pretend this isn't happening, Andrew admitted, his voice low, rough with emotion. I should have been there, Racheal. I should have known. Racheal flinched. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. It's not just that simple, Andrew, she said, her voice trembling. Life, it didn't stop for either of us. I didn't want to tell you. Not while I wasn't sure how you'd react. Not while I was still trying to figure out how to protect myself. And the baby. Andrew felt a stab of guilt, sharper than anything he had felt in years. He wanted to argue, to demand that she share every detail, every hidden emotion, every moment of the last 7 months. But the words died in his throat. Instead, he realized that Racheal had built walls around herself and around him. She had survived alone, and he had failed to be a part of it. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked finally, softer this time, almost a whisper. "Why leave me in the dark?" "Because I didn't know if I could trust you with it," she replied, her voice breaking slightly. "Because the last time we tried, it ended in heartbreak. I wasn't ready for another disappointment." Andrew's chest tightened. He understood too well. The heartbreak, the mistakes, the pride, the fights, they had all been there lingering, waiting for this moment. And now, here they were, forced to confront the past in a crowded restaurant, under the gaze of strangers, with a new life between them. He took a step closer, then stopped, unsure if he should touch her, reach out, or let the distance remain. The air between them felt electric, heavy with possibilities and regrets alike. Racheal turned slightly away, afraid that looking at him would reveal the emotions she could not yet control. Her heartbeat raced as she imagined his judgment, his anger, his disappointment, or worse, his indifference. And yet, in the depths of her mind, hope flickered. Perhaps he could be different this time. Perhaps he could rise above the past and embrace what was coming. They stood like that for minutes that felt like hours. Around them, the restaurant buzzed, dishes clinked, customers whispered. But for Andrew and Racheal, the rest of the world had vanished. "I don't even know where to start," Andrew finally admitted, voice strained. "Everything's so much. I see the baby, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Racheal's eyes softened, tears threatening to spill. "We'll figure it out," she whispered, almost to herself. "But not now. Not in front of everyone. We need time." Andrew nodded, realizing that no amount of wealth or power could fix this instantly. They were at the beginning of something fragile and terrifying. A second chance, wrapped in fear, doubt, and the weight of unspoken years. He took a deep breath, letting the tension settle slightly. The room, the murmurs, the spilled soup, all faded just enough for him to think. One thing was clear. Neither of them could walk away. Not now. Not ever. And somewhere deep in his chest, a pulse of hope began to rise, fragile and tentative, but real. The restaurant manager's voice cut through the tension like a sharp knife. "Everyone, please remain calm. The spill. Table 5. Can someone give me a hand?" Andrew stepped forward instinctively, but Racheal waved him off, her hands shaking as she tried to steady herself. The customers were beginning to murmur louder, some glaring, others whispering about the chaos. There was no escaping now. She couldn't just leave, and he couldn't turn away. A waiter approached with a mop, slipping slightly on the wet floor. "Careful," Andrew muttered, almost to himself, before realizing he was speaking aloud. Racheal looked at him, startled, and then he saw a flash of gratitude in her eyes. "Thanks," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the din. The situation forced them to move together, side by side, cleaning up the spilled soup and broken dishes. Every step they took brought them closer. Andrew felt her warmth, the subtle curve of her belly brushing against his side as she leaned down to pick up a fallen plate. Each motion, small as it was, made his chest tighten in a way no boardroom victory ever had. "Careful," he whispered, his hand hovering near hers, unsure whether to touch or pull away. She looked at him, searching his face for some hint of judgment. None came. Only concern. For the first time in years, Andrew was not the untouchable CEO. Here he was just a man, flustered, cautious, and painfully aware of what he had lost and what he still might gain. The customers' murmurs faded into the background as the silence between them stretched. Their breaths synchronized in a subtle rhythm, and every glance, every small gesture, carried unspoken words. Regret, longing, fear, hope. At one point, she dropped a glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound echoing through the restaurant. Andrew instinctively bent down, picking up the larger pieces, while she steadied herself against the edge of a table. "You're careful," she said softly, almost smiling. "I have to be," he replied, meeting her eyes. "Because if I'm not, I might lose you again." Her breath hitched. She wanted to tell him everything, about the baby, the fears, the nights she spent worrying if he would ever find out. But the words stuck. Instead, she nodded slightly, letting the silence convey what she could not yet say. For a moment, they moved in perfect, uneasy harmony, navigating the chaos together. The situation, spilled soup, broken dishes, angry murmurs, had forced them into close proximity, and with that proximity came a flood of memories. Laughter from years ago, late-night talks, whispered confessions. Andrew felt a pull, magnetic and undeniable. He wanted to reach out, to place a hand over hers, to ask 1,000 questions at once. But he held back, letting the moment linger, realizing that sometimes, the first step toward healing wasn't words, it was presence. The spilled dishes finally cleared, and the murmurs died down. The restaurant had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after the storm. But Andrew and Racheal remained suspended in a bubble of tension and emotion. He looked at her, voice low and steady. "We can't ignore this, not anymore. But maybe we take it one step at a time." Racheal's eyes softened, and for the first time since seeing him, she allowed herself to breathe a little easier. "One step at a time," she whispered. A subtle smile flickered across Andrew's face, but behind it lingered the question. How would they navigate the secrets, the past, and the new life growing between them? And now, dear viewers, what would you do if someone from your past, someone you thought you'd lost forever, suddenly returned, bringing the biggest surprise of your life? Comment below and let us know. The restaurant had finally settled back into a calm rhythm, but Andrew and Racheal remained standing together, a fragile bubble of tension and unspoken emotions surrounding them. The earlier chaos, the spilled soup, the broken dishes, the murmuring customers, had created a moment of closeness, but now the silence was heavy, full of questions that neither of them could ignore. Racheal finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Andrew, there's something I need to tell you." He turned to her fully, noticing how her hand rested protectively over her belly. "What is it?" he asked, though a part of him already feared the answer. She hesitated, glancing around at the still busy restaurant. "I didn't just reconnect with you that night at the gala. I tried to protect myself from getting hurt again. I wasn't sure if I could trust you. And then," she swallowed hard, taking a shaky breath, "I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after that night. I didn't tell you because I didn't know if you were ready to be a part of this life." Andrew's chest tightened. His mind reeled, replaying that night, the quiet reunion, the subtle touches, the stolen conversation. He had never imagined that one brief encounter could carry such weight. You didn't think I'd want to know?" he asked softly, his voice barely audible. I didn't know," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I was scared. I've spent the last 7 months trying to figure out if I could handle this on my own, or if you would even want to handle it." Andrew's hands trembled slightly. He wanted to grab her, to hold her close, to promise her that everything would be different this time, but he restrained himself. He didn't want to overwhelm her, didn't want to push too fast. Yet every moment of silence screamed at him that waiting too long could mean losing her again. I should have known," he whispered finally, a note of guilt threading his words. "I should have noticed. I should have been there." Racheal shook her head, bitter and tired. "You weren't there, Andrew. I did this alone because I had to. I had to survive. And I had to protect this baby. I didn't know if you could be trusted not to walk away again." Her words hit him harder than anything in a boardroom. Not anger, not betrayal, but truth. The raw truth of the fear and pain she had carried alone for months, and of the choices she had made to shield herself and the life growing inside her. Andrew stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I failed you," he admitted. "Not just then, not just 5 years ago. But I'm here now. And I don't want to fail anymore." Her hand tightened over her belly. She could feel the baby moving, small kicks that seemed almost in rhythm with the tension and hope between them. She looked at him, searching his face for sincerity, for proof that he had changed, for evidence that he was willing to be a part of this life, her life, and their child's life. "You have to understand," she said finally, voice breaking slightly. "I've built walls, Andrew. I've kept secrets. I've protected myself because love hurt me before. And I don't want to get hurt again." Andrew reached out, his fingers hovering near hers, not daring to touch yet. "I know," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. I know you're scared. And I don't blame you. But I can't ignore this. I can't ignore you. Not now. Not ever. For the first time, Racheal let herself breathe. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine the possibility that he might not walk away this time. That maybe, just maybe, the man she had loved for so long, the man who had haunted her nights and dreams, could stand beside her, fully present, ready to face the unknown together. The restaurant faded around them again. The soft chatter, the clinking dishes, the curious glances of diners. None of it mattered. What mattered was the fragile connection forming between them, built on truth, vulnerability, and the undeniable presence of new life between them. Andrew's voice broke the silence again. We have a lot to fix. We have a lot to talk about. But I want to try. I want us. And I want to be there for this baby. I won't walk away. Racheal's eyes welled with tears, a small, genuine smile forming. Then maybe we can figure this out, she whispered. And in that moment, a fragile, delicate thread of hope stretched between them, binding past pain with the possibility of a future neither had dared to imagine. If you were in Andrew or Racheal's shoes, would you take a second chance at love after years apart? Comment below. What would you do? The restaurant had finally quieted. The spilled soup was cleaned, dishes replaced, and most of the diners had returned to their conversations, leaving Andrew and Racheal in a space that felt strangely private, though it was still crowded. The chaos of moments ago had faded, but the weight of unspoken truths lingered between them. Andrew sat down at a corner table, gesturing for Racheal to join him. Please, he said softly. Just sit. For a minute. Can we talk? She hesitated, looking around at the other diners, then slowly slid into the chair across from him. Her hands rested over her belly, protective but relaxed now, as if sensing a subtle shift in the air between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The noise of the restaurant became background music to the storm of thoughts, regrets, and hope swirling around them. Finally, Andrew broke the silence. I can't stop thinking about that night. The night we, he said, voice low and almost apologetic. I never imagined it would lead to this. To you pregnant. I don't even know how to process it. Racheal's lips trembled, and a small, almost shy smile appeared. Neither did I, she admitted. I thought I could handle this alone. That I could keep it together until I knew what you wanted. I never expected to see you here, like this, watching me. Andrew leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. And now, he asked gently. Her eyes softened, and she looked down at her hands, then back at him. Now, I don't know what to do. But I do know I'm tired of pretending I can do this all alone. For the first time in years, a moment of quiet understanding passed between them. No words could capture it entirely, but the subtle gestures, the way their eyes held, the way her hand instinctively touched her belly, the way he reached out slightly but didn't intrude, spoke volumes. Andrew chuckled softly, almost nervously. I never thought I'd be sitting in a small restaurant, sweating over spilled soup and trying not to scare you. Racheal laughed, the sound light and genuine, and for a heartbeat it felt like old times, like the world had paused just for them. You're ridiculous, she said, smiling despite herself. You billionaire CEO, worrying about broken dishes in a diner? He smiled, warmth creeping into his eyes. And yet here I am. And somehow, it matters more than any boardroom deal I've ever made. Her gaze softened even further. Andrew, I don't know if we can fix everything. But I want to try. I want maybe a second chance. He reached across the table, brushing her hand lightly, careful not to startle her. The simple contact sent a shock of electricity between them, a reminder of the connection they had shared long ago, now tempered by pain, maturity, and hope. I want that too, he said, voice steady, full of emotion. I want to be here. For you. For the baby. And for us. They sat together like that for several minutes, talking quietly, sharing tentative smiles, and sometimes just sitting in silence, letting the moment speak. Small jokes, light laughter, and gentle teasing began to bridge the gap that 5 years had created. Racheal spoke softly about her pregnancy, the challenges she had faced alone, and the little quirks of the baby she already loved without meeting. Andrew listened, offering comfort, encouragement, and a few playful remarks that made her laugh. Every word, every gesture, every shared glance brought them closer. Outside, life continued. Diners ate, servers moved, and the world went on. But inside that small corner of the restaurant, Andrew and Racheal began to rediscover something both fragile and powerful. Trust, connection, and hope for a future together. Andrew leaned back, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. "We're going to have to take this slowly," he said, eyes soft but determined. "But I want to be here for every step. I don't want to lose you again." Racheal nodded, her eyes glistening, a small smile breaking through the lingering fear. "Then, maybe we can actually do this. Together." A quiet hope settled between them, a fragile, delicate bond, but one that felt real, tangible, and strong enough to carry them through the uncertainties that lay ahead. If you were watching Andrew and Racheal, would you trust someone with your heart a second time? Comment below and share your thoughts. For the first time in months, Andrew and Racheal had felt a fragile sense of peace. Laughter had returned, tiny glimpses of hope had flickered between them, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the past could be rewritten. But life, as always, had other plans. Later that evening, after leaving the restaurant, Andrew offered to drive Racheal home. The night was quiet, the streets glowing under the city lights, and the silence between them had been comfortable until it was broken by a message on Andrew's phone. He glanced at it briefly. His face fell. "Everything okay?" Racheal asked, sensing the sudden tension. Andrew hesitated. He wanted to shield her, to keep the fragile bond intact for just a little longer, but the message was from his assistant. Urgent news that threatened not just a business deal, but the reputation he had built over years. I have to handle this," he said, voice tight. "I can't ignore it." Racheal's eyes darkened slightly, a shadow of the fear she had carried for years creeping back. "Again? Always the work, Andrew?" she whispered, a tremor of hurt in her voice. "Do you ever put us first?" Andrew's jaw clenched. "I'm trying to protect everything, Racheal. Everything. You think I want to deal with this now? Do you think I don't care about us?" Her hands trembled. "No. You don't get it. You've had 5 years to think, 5 years to change, and yet, I still feel like I'm invisible sometimes. And now, I feel like I'm fighting this alone again." The car was silent except for the low hum of traffic. Yet between them, words were heavy and sharp, cutting deeper than any argument in the past. Andrew's fists tightened around the steering wheel. "You think I don't feel guilty? You think I don't feel the weight of missing months of your life? Of missing this child's life? I do. Every day." Racheal's eyes filled with tears. "Then show me Andrew. Don't just say it." He looked at her, guilt and desperation warring in his chest. I'm trying to fix it, to make it right. But you won't let me." The tension exploded. Voices raised, words sharper than intended. Passers-by in the street could have heard the clash if they were close enough. A stranger might have thought the argument trivial. But for Andrew and Racheal, it was the culmination of 5 years of pain, pride, misunderstandings, and fear. "You always leave me feeling like this," Racheal yelled, her hand trembling over her belly. "I'm pregnant, Andrew. I'm carrying your child, and I feel like I'm doing it alone." Andrew's chest tightened. He wanted to scream, to beg for understanding, but his pride, his fear, and his guilt collided, leaving him almost speechless. I can't fix everything in a second." Her tears spilled freely now. "Then maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't." But she didn't finish. She turned abruptly, walking toward the door, leaving Andrew frozen behind the steering wheel. The world felt heavier than ever. Andrew reached out instinctively, but the car door was already closed. He watched her disappear into the night, the glow of the streetlights illuminating her retreating figure. Panic, regret, and helplessness flooded him. For the first time in months he realized he could lose her again, and this time he might never get her back. He sat there for a long moment, heart pounding, chest aching, mind spinning. Every mistake of the past, every missed year, every day he hadn't been there, they all pressed down on him at once. And he knew without a doubt that the window for redemption was closing fast. Alone in the car, Andrew's hands trembled as he dialed her number. No answer. Voicemail. A cold, empty line. Outside, Racheal leaned against the side of the restaurant she had returned to, tears streaking her face. She felt the weight of doubt, the fear of betrayal, and the overwhelming sense that the fragile trust they had built might already be shattered. Somewhere in the city, two hearts ached, separated by pride, fear, and misunderstanding. And the night stretched on, heavy with questions. Would they find their way back to each other? Or had this argument destroyed everything? What would you do if the person you loved most said things that hurt you, and you felt like walking away forever? Comment below. Would you fight or let go? The city was quiet that night, but inside both Andrew and Racheal, storms raged. Andrew sat alone in his penthouse, the hum of the city below a distant reminder of a world moving on without him. He stared out at the lights, trying to think, trying to breathe, but the image of Racheal, her eyes filled with tears, her small, fragile frame illuminated by streetlights, haunted him. He had never felt so powerless, so exposed, so certain that a single mistake could cost him everything. He replayed their argument over and over, each word sharper in his mind than it had sounded in the moment. "You always leave me feeling like this," she had shouted. He could still hear the trembling of her voice, still feel the sting of every accusation. But beneath the hurt, he recognized the truth. She had been afraid. She had been protecting herself, protecting the baby, protecting her heart from another lifetime of disappointment. And he had allowed his pride and fear to push her away. Even now, after all they had been through, he leaned forward, gripping the edge of the desk, feeling a rush of desperation. "I can't lose her. Not now. Not ever," he whispered, almost to himself. "I can't let pride destroy what we finally have. I have to fight for her. For us. For this child." Meanwhile, Racheal sat on her small apartment balcony, the city lights shimmering in the distance. Her hand rested over her belly, gentle but protective. She traced the curve with her fingers, feeling the life growing inside her. It was a life tied to Andrew, a reminder of love, passion, mistakes, and hope all rolled into one. Her heart ached with uncertainty. Could she trust him? Could she believe that this time he would be different? That he would stay? That he would care for them both? Could she risk her heart again after everything? I don't know if I can," she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "I've built walls for a reason. I've survived alone. And yet, I don't want to be alone anymore." Memories flooded her mind. The night of the gala, their brief reunion, the secret moments, the laughter, the late-night talks, the moments they had almost shared but had been denied by time and distance. She remembered Andrew's hands, his voice, the intensity of his gaze. Despite the anger, despite the argument, despite her fears, she felt that pull, the undeniable truth that he had always belonged in her life. Racheal sighed, taking a deep breath. She had a choice to make: stay behind her walls, protect herself, and risk losing Andrew and the life they were meant to share, or let go of her fear, embrace vulnerability, and give love. Unexpected, messy, and breathtakingly real. A chance to bloom again. At the same time, Andrew picked up his phone, dialing her number for what felt like the 100th time that night. He left another voicemail, each word heavy with sincerity, longing, and an unspoken promise. "I won't walk away. Not this time. I love you. And I want to be there. For you. For the baby. For us." Racheal's phone buzzed on the table beside her. She stared at it for a long moment, her finger hovering over the screen. She could ignore it. She could let the night pass in silence. Or she could answer, and take the leap she had been afraid to take for months. Her hand shook slightly as she finally pressed the green button. "Hello," she whispered. "Racheal, it's me," Andrew said, his voice low, trembling, but filled with determination. I'm here. I'm not leaving. I promise. Please let me make this right." She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, letting the fear, the hurt, and the uncertainty wash over her. And then she let it go. I'll try," she whispered. For the first time in months, a fragile bridge formed between them, built on honesty, hope, and a shared determination to fight for what truly mattered. They weren't past the pain yet. They weren't healed. But they had chosen each other. And that choice, fragile, terrifying, and brave, was enough to spark the possibility of something beautiful. Outside, the city continued, indifferent to their decisions, unaware that two hearts had just begun a journey toward redemption, love, and the future they were about to create together. If you were in Andrew or Racheal's shoes, would you answer the call and give love a second chance, or let fear take over? Comment below. We want to hear your choice. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Racheal's apartment, casting warm, golden light across the small living room. The city outside had woken, but inside, the world felt suspended in a fragile, perfect moment. She sat on the sofa, hands resting over her belly, tracing gentle circles as if communicating silently with the life growing inside her. Her mind replayed the events of the night before. The argument, the fear, the doubt, and the choice she had made to answer Andrew's call. A soft knock at the door broke her reverie. Her heart skipped a beat. Racheal. It was him. Andrew, standing in the doorway, looking both nervous and determined, as if the weight of the past 5 years had settled onto his shoulders in one moment. But there was something different, something softened, humbled, yet unbreakable in his gaze. She rose slowly, unsure if she should embrace him or step back. But when he stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him, all the walls she had built melted, just a little. I'm here, he said softly, voice low but filled with certainty. I know I don't deserve all of your trust yet, but I promise you this. I'm not walking away. Not now. Not ever. Tears pricked at Racheal's eyes. She wanted to be angry, to hold back, to remind him of the months of silence, the pain of absence. But the truth was undeniable. She had missed him more than she realized, and the life they had begun together, the child she carried, needed him. Needed both of them. I was scared, she whispered, her voice trembling. Scared you'd leave again. Scared I'd have to face this alone. Andrew stepped closer, gently taking her hand, letting it rest over her belly. You won't have to. Not ever again. I can't change the past, but I can promise this. I'm here now. And I'll be here every day, through the good, the bad, and everything in between. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the tension of the past years melting into silence, the weight of their shared history settling into a quiet peace. Then Andrew knelt slightly, placing his hands lightly on either side of her stomach. Can I? He asked, voice almost breaking. Racheal nodded, tears spilling freely now. Yes. He leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to the small curve of her belly. I promise to protect this life. And to protect you. We'll figure this out together. Always. Racheal felt a surge of hope, relief, and love all at once. It was a moment of reconciliation, of second chances, of the kind of love that had survived pain, distance, and fear. They embraced, long and careful, letting the moment linger. Outside, the city continued, oblivious to the reunion inside the apartment, but for Andrew and Racheal, the world had finally aligned. Days passed, and slowly, they began rebuilding their life together. Andrew was present, at doctor visits, small daily tasks, and late-night conversations filled with laughter and tenderness. Racheal, once guarded and hesitant, began to trust fully, allowing him into her world and the life of the child they were bringing into it. And then one evening, as they walked hand in hand through the park, Racheal rested her head on Andrew's shoulder. I never imagined it would feel like this, she said softly. Andrew smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Neither did I. But I know one thing for sure. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every lost moment led me to you. To us. And I won't waste a single second now. Racheal smiled back, her heart full. Me neither. They stopped at a quiet bench, the city skyline glowing behind them, and Andrew looked at her with unwavering sincerity. I don't care about the past anymore, he said. All that matters is now, and our future together. Her eyes glistened with tears of joy. Then let's not waste a single moment, she whispered. They embraced once more, the weight of the past lifted, the promise of the future binding them together. Between them grew a love that had been tested, challenged, and nearly broken, but had survived. The baby they awaited was a symbol of that resilience, of hope, and of the power of second chances. The world outside could continue its chaos, but inside their small bubble, Andrew and Racheal had found peace, love, and an unspoken promise. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold and crimson, they walked home hand in hand, hearts full, spirits renewed, and a future waiting to be written. A future built on trust, vulnerability, and the kind of love that lasts at last. Do you believe in second chances at love? Share your story in the comments. Who would you fight for no matter what? Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.